Welcome back to the Process Podcast. My question for you today is, what is the craziest fitness challenge you've ever done in your life? When I look at the things that I've done, honestly, they pale in comparison compared to Josh Stone, who is my guest on today's podcast. He rode the Atlantic 42 days, sleeping for 2 hours, rowing for 2 hours, continuously for over 1,000 hours. This is a crazy story. I couldn't wait to sit down with him and talk to him about the mindset learnings, the training, and the actual execution of rowing across the Atlantic. I think you guys are going to love this episode. My mantra for today's episode is just say yes. Josh Stone, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
How are you doing today?
How am I doing today? I'm good. I'm going on holiday to the UK tomorrow and then on to San Sebastian for the first time, which is going to be awesome. So kind of winding up the week, but this is kind of a nice way to wrap it up, definitely.
Okay, so Josh, the way we got introduced to each other, well, technically there is like we have known each other for a while. That slipped my mind.
You forgot.
I did forget. There's no other way about this. But we were introduced by one of my mates, Andy, who basically said, "Ed, you got to meet this guy Josh." And I said, obviously, I didn't have a clue who you were, but I did. He's done like some pretty incredible things in his life, notably the Talisker Challenge.
Yeah.
Which is you and 3 other lads rowed across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
42 days. He said, I think you guys had a chat and there was some nut stories that brats are completely blown away about.
Yeah.
I am fascinated with like human performance in general. So as soon as I heard, I was like, Josh, you got to get in the podcast. We have to talk about this.
Sure.
And chatting a little bit before this podcast, there's something about you that has this gravitational pull towards really, really extreme things. I can see it in you already.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess, do I do extreme things? I say yes to things, right? And I think if you're willing to give something a go and just give it a punt, great things always happen. And that's really what I've done with most of my life. Why don't you go to China for an internship and then end up staying for 12 fantastic years? Or, when someone calls you up and says, would you like to be, the fourth man on our ocean rowing boat and row in the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean? Yeah, you just say yes. And I always find that when you do say yes to things, great things happen, like I say. But yeah, just happy to be here, happy to talk about it and kind of go through that process.
Okay, so this whole idea of just saying yes to things, like I get it, right? So when I look at our values, like the last one, choose courage over comfort. The whole idea there is when you do difficult things, great things come from it. But has that always been something that's, I don't know, just ingrained in you? Were you raised that way? Did something happen as a child that made you think, right, choosing the really hard, crazy option is going to be the right thing to do?
That's a really good question. Look, I've always been a resilient guy. I think I've had not a tough upbringing, but I grew up in Hong Kong, was here till about the age of 11. And then, me and my mum moved back to the UK, back to Nottingham, which was, a very different place from Hong Kong. Went to a really poor performing school, got bullied a lot, went through depression, all sorts of stuff. But by saying yes to things like playing rugby, meeting new people, actually just getting up and getting out of the house a lot, you get through things. I think the most important thing, that yes journey for me probably started when I was just like, let's give China a go in 2011. Do you want to go do an internship in Shanghai? Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to stay? Yeah, absolutely. And then good things kind of happen. Do you want to pick up a new sport like boxing? Yeah, absolutely. And great things have always happened on the back of that. And you can do that when you're young, right? And I think, to be honest, I've stopped saying yes so much, probably in the last 3 or 4 years, as I've tried to kind of really focus on my new life here in Hong Kong. But I want to get back to saying yes. So, I've kind of, I guess if you're going to say it, I've lost that kind of saying yes attitude, and I wouldn't actually mind getting back there. But I think, saying yes to the ocean row and going back to it, I guess how it all started was I was 30 years old and I was starting to probably lose my way a little bit in Shanghai. A lot of my friends, a lot of my mentors had left onto what looked like better and bigger things. And I was kind of stuck there. I was just kind of really not doing myself any favors. And then someone gave me a call, one of my mentors who'd actually moved on to Indonesia. And he said, look, we've got three guys here and we're really close friends. And we'd love you to be the fourth guy to row an ocean boat with us across the Atlantic. And he called me when I was on holiday with my mum in London. And I looked at it. He goes, look, have a look on the website and call me back in the next day or two. I looked at the website. I've spent longer ordering food on Food Panda on a Sunday night than having a look at this website and making a decision. And I just went, that looks like a bit of me. It's rowing an ocean. It can't be that difficult, but fuck it. Let's just go and do it. And I just thought, let's do this. I really need this. I felt I really needed this in my life. And I needed.
Can I just pause you there, Josh? What was it that this row challenge like represented that you needed?
I think it was, do you know what? A little bit of focus and just giving me a little bit of purpose.
Yeah.
I didn't have any purpose. And this thing came along, this huge challenge, and it just was such a big amount of purpose. And it was like, you're going to go do something pretty incredible and you're going to tie your name to something pretty incredible. And whether you do it or not, at least you gave it a good try. And I think that was the most, I was just kind of stumbling around, not really having any purpose in my life. And this thing just provided me with some fantastic purpose in my life. And it just spoke to me. So I just said to James, thank you so much. I'm in. When do we start? And that was the beginning of the process. So that started probably the summer of 2019, a year and a half before the row. And yeah, don't regret it one bit. I mean, it was incredibly difficult to train for. And we can go through that whole process.
Yeah. I mean, my first question is like, had you rowed before?
No. I mean, I'd done CrossFit, right? And then you get on the erg and you're just doing like...
You row 500 meters.
Yeah, 24-minute, EMOM, whatever. Yeah. I hadn't rowed at all. None of the guys had. And
So how did this collection of like these three lads, how did this all start?
So it's a bit of premise. The three guys, they're a little bit older than me.
Yeah.
I was in my 30s. They were coming up to their 50s. There was Keith, Richard, and James. And James was my old mentor from Shanghai, and he's the one who made the proposition. He knew Keith and Richard from, I guess their uni days. And they were all really much friends. And I think they basically had a pact 10 years ago that we're going to go row the ocean, because this thing's been going for a while. And I think someone had either dropped out or they were like, let's do a 4-man here. Because rowing in a 3-man pair or a trio is incredibly difficult in terms of the timings. So they're like, let's do this 4-man, and it just takes the heat off. And I'd like to say I was their first port of call, but I don't think I was. But, they said that, very kind. And I just snapped at the opportunity and I just like, yeah, let me in there. And yeah, I rowed those three across the ocean. They did nothing, those guys.
So you basically say yes a year and a half before like launch date.
Yeah.
What's the plan then?
Yeah, good question. So, and that was for all of us. We were sitting there scratching our heads going.
And are you all in different parts of the world at this point in time?
Right. So I'm in Hong Kong. James is in Indonesia. Keith is he's in the UK, he's in Northampton, and then Rich is in York, right? So two of them are in the UK. And add to that, you've got COVID, right? And it is just, well, when I said yes, it wasn't COVID. And then you've got COVID and it starts to rip havoc through the world and traveling and all of this stuff. We didn't think we were going to row actually at the end because we thought we was going to be cancelled. I mean, if you think about it, December 2020, you're, I guess, 9 months into a global pandemic. So, getting everyone to Spain or La Gomera, sorry, and, getting everyone back in and out of doing your training sessions, because there are training sessions you need to do. You need to do a mandatory 120 hours on the boat before you go out. So doing all of that stuff was a nightmare around COVID. But I mean, back to your initial question, what was the initial question?
Yeah, so it's like you say yes, you got a year and a half to prep.
So we're staring at this thing and you think, oh, there's loads of information out there, or actually Talisker or the company behind it,
Is going to help you out. And
Atlantic Challenges, I think that's Atlantic Campaigns. They're going to help you out. They've got a big booklet. This is how you train. This is how you do it. This is what your nutrition. What they say is, they don't really give you much on how you're supposed to cross an ocean. They've just got rules you've got to meet. So they've got nutritional rules. If you're this weight, this is how many calories you need to eat per person, or, that's the mandate. So they set rules out. They don't give you advice. So we sat there looking at this huge expanse of water. Where do we begin with this? One, with the training, two, with the nutrition, and three, just executing the project, right?
Yeah.
And how do we go about that? And we had a year and a half to figure it out. We were so lucky. Richard, one of the members heard about this great guy called Duncan Roy, who was this young kind of ocean rower who had a great backstory. He was a Royal Engineer, and you should get him on the podcast, to be honest. An amazing guy who was medically discharged from the army, unfortunately due to a back injury, and found ocean rowing. He did an amazing row, I think I can't remember, he's going to kill me, but I think it was somewhere in South America to one of these islands down in the Pacific. Sorry, Duncan, if you listen to this. And his row went awful. It was like the worst experience. His first initial row, things broke, chairs broke, the rowing all snapped, etc. And but he got so much out of it. And he told people that, the darker it gets, the better it is for people long term. Anyway, going back to Duncan, we managed to get his contact, and he said, look, we'll do you soup to nuts. I'll look after you for the whole thing. We'll help you with the nutrition. I'll help you with getting ready for the boat, and I'll do a training plan for you. Nice. And then it was the best thing for us. So I think, going into something like that, you don't want to wing it. And certainly, and I'll talk about being out there, and you might ask a question, were you ever afraid? And the reality is no, because we did everything. We did a whole process, went through everything just over and over and over again. And you just trust the process. I guess that's why I'm on the podcast, but you just trust the process on that. But yeah, Duncan was amazing. He was just such a great Yorkshireman as well. And he just looked after us, and it was a real rigorous training. Really started probably, I'd say 11 months out of the actual row, 10 to 11 months. And it was just brutal.
I want to actually really dig into the training part, 'cause I'm fascinated.
Yeah.
By that. But before we do that, tell us about the main stats of the actual row. How far were you rowing? What's the time? What's the rowing format?
Yeah.
Calorie. You just talked about nutrition. Give us some top end stats that we need to know about.
That's
what
good.
You're about
if
to
I
do.
can remember them properly. Yeah. So we spent 42 days on a rowing boat. Let's start from where it starts.
Yeah.
Right. Let's. And I guess we probably should have started the podcast with this. Let's start with where it starts, which is you're to row a boat from La Gomera, which is just left of really the top of Africa, if you can imagine that. And you're supposed to row a boat across the Atlantic to Antigua. And you're supposed to have a great party there when it finishes, and it's amazing. And that's essentially, it's a race. Right. And it comes in 5 formats, and the formats are based on the individuals on the boat. So you could do it solo, and that probably takes around, that's probably a 70 to 80.
And is that common?
Quite a lot of people doing that? There's a lot of people that will do a solo one.
And are there support boats? Is there a little
motorized
boat next to you?
So it's all unsupported. So you carry your own food, you carry water desalinators on the boat.
Yeah.
You're making your own water. You don't see another boat for 42 days. Wow. Right? You don't see a thing for 42 days. We were the only boat in the race, and where we were halfway through and we saw another rowing boat. The vast amount of space between these boats are huge. And when you look at a horizon, you're only looking, I think, about 5 to maybe 8 to 10 kilometers. That's as far as you can see into
before
it starts dipping.
Yeah.
So for you to be within 8 to 10 kilometers in the middle of the Atlantic next to another rowing boat is insane.
Likelihood is nothing.
Likelihoods is insane. Anyway, back to it. You're rowing across the ocean. You've got single, you've got pairs, you've got trio, then you've got a 4-man boat, and then there's 5-man boat. Don't really know how that works, but we were in a 4, and it took us 42 days, about just over 1,000 hours, and about 500 hours just rowing. I spent just over 500 hours rowing a boat. The breakdown of the format is 2 hours on, 2 hours off. You never have more than 2 hours rest.
And that's right from the start. You start with 2 hours and never changes.
Yeah, for 42 days, you are 2 hours on, and then you head into the cabin, get as much sleep, or you do your admin and sleep, and then you're back on for 2 hours. 2 hours on, 2 hours off.
So the boat is moving
at
for
all times.
1,000 plus hours, always.
At all times. And if you're on a good day, you've probably done 100 to 120 miles. On a bad day, you're doing 50 to 60 if you come into some inclement weather. It's really, and those were really tough times, and we can talk about that as well. But that's pretty much the breakdown. And you're left to your own devices to get this boat from La Gomera to Antigua. Is
there like success rate? Like, how many boats start and finish? Like, do boats just go missing? Like, does like crews?
There are some horror stories, right? So, unfortunately, look, stuff goes wrong all the time.
Yeah,
people get out five days in, and they're going, "This is not for me."
Yeah,
and they turn back into La Gomera, and that happens probably. I wouldn't say a lot. It happens quite a few times.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think 2 years ago, someone passed away on a boat. Due to a heart attack.
Yeah.
And that stuff you
can't forecast that.
Yeah, you can't forecast that. But there's all sorts of stuff that happens. People have breakdowns when they get out that far. There's one where if you don't get the right boat, there are a couple people out there that think that they can make an ocean row. There's a company that make them called Rannoch. And these are solid boats, these things. I think ours was like an R45. They're a big piece of kit.
Yeah.
They are serious pieces of kit. But sometimes there are some cowboys out there that think, oh, I can go make a great ocean rowing boat.
A Taobao rowboat.
A Taobao rowboat. And then, you get these massive waves, they hit you. And then the next thing you know, your boat's being capsized. The beautiful thing about the Rannoch was, once it capsized, it was built to
just spin back round.
As long as the hatches were closed.
Yeah.
So it can be really, really dangerous, but you just make sure the preparation is just on point, and that you're always what we call clipped on. So I'm always wearing a belt at all times. And I'm clipped onto the boat, because if you don't get clipped on, and that's just probably the scariest thing in the world. A boat you fall out the boat, and the boat starts going away from you. That would be horrible.
Okay, so take me through the training now.
Yeah.
Right. So at this point in time, you've said yes to the challenge.
Yeah.
You've done a few CrossFit workouts. You spent a bit of time on a concept too.
Yeah.
That's about it. Like, what does prep look like? Like, are you doing strength and conditioning?
Yeah.
Are you just doing a shit ton of rowing? Like, what's it looking like? How's your week structured?
Do you know, it was a shit ton of rowing.
Yeah.
A lot of rowing. And I think Duncan's actually gone away in the last 4 or 5 years, and he's probably put strength in there, probably put a little bit more. He was always big on like the flexibility kind of things and the stretching and the stuff. I unfortunately was never
skip that bit.
Yeah. Poor me. But I think he's probably changed up his dynamic a little bit. But I think if you could break it down into 3 parts, the first one is build the engine. Second part is getting long distances in, and I'll go through each one. And then the third one is almost like a tapering off as you close in on the event. So building the engine is pretty grueling, and you have 4 workouts a week, and they can differ, and I'll send you a few of them. One is a row at a 20 rate stroke rate, so a 20, so it's nice, easy, slow, but you're at an hour, and what you're trying to do is get as fast as you can at a 20 rate stroke rate.
Why 20? Team, I want to quickly interrupt this episode to give a little shout out to our sponsors, Today Well Spent. This little journal has made such a massive, profound impact on my life since I started using it. When I started using it, I actually didn't know that it was backed by neuroscience, but now it totally makes sense. This has brought a ton of gratitude to my life. It keeps me on track and focused on the things I need to do day to day, and brings a lot of context as to how each day fits within the greater week and the greater month. So if you, like me, really care about trying to be a high performer and want to do everything you can to make that happen, I cannot recommend this journal enough. Use our discount code, THEPROCESS, to grab yours today.
Because that's the rate that you're rowing at. You're probably rowing at 16 to 20 on the ocean. You're not going any faster than that.
Why aren't you going faster? And why aren't you going slower? Is that just
it's
a golden
42
rule?
days? Yeah, it's 42 days. You don't want to be going at a 24 stroke rate. I mean, for you, that's probably
I need to. I mean,
no, because it's basically it's it's like it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
Right. And you're just kind of going at it 20, but you're pulling some serious stuff.
Are these three other lads? Are they big? Are they like you? You're 6'4", 100.
No,
you're like 120 kg.
Keith will hate me for saying this. He's tiny.
Yeah.
Richard incredibly fit. James also quite fit. But they were a bit older. Those guys were a little bit older than me. So I was kind of seen as the young, strapping, strong lad on the boat. And I was, I was 117 kilos at the time. And I did a lot of CrossFit at the time.
Yeah.
I could shift some serious weight. The problem was I was pretty heavy.
Yeah.
I was a pretty big boy. And the weight on the boat, you've got to look at how much your boat weighs.
Yeah, where you're distributing load.
Trust me, people who are serious at winning this race, they'll take more freeze-dried food than they will wet food, because the wet food's obviously a lot heavier.
Yeah.
So you've got guys that are just like, we'll just have 1 or 2 packets of wet food. We want comfort.
Yeah.
Right? We're not winning this thing. We thought we would, but we're not winning this thing, but we want to be comfortable if we're going to do this.
Yeah.
So
going back to training then, it's a law of specificity, right?
Yeah.
You're going to be rowing at 20 strokes a minute. So pretty much, on that one day of rowing, that 1 hour is specifically getting very comfortable at 20 strokes per minute. Got it.
So it really is at 20 strokes per minute. If he wants to build the engine a bit more, we'll do a ladder, right? So then you'll go up, and he bases it on, there's so many metrics. You have to do a 2K.
Yeah.
And my 2K was 6 minutes 37. So I was rowing a 136 split for 2K. And then my 1 hour split was my best was 152. I could hold 152 at 20 stroke rate for an hour. I couldn't do that now.
Yeah. It's very solid.
Yeah. And so you're there, you're doing that. And so we base our training off those metrics. So he'll say, I want you to be rowing 20 stroke rate, but actually row it 5 seconds above your best.
Yeah.
And so we'll build the engine, and then he'll do a ladder one where, you're rowing, you're building up into different stroke rates and different paces, and then you're coming back down.
Yeah.
And then, so that was the building of the engine, and that was a 3-month process. And then with this next 3 months was...
Sorry, Josh, you're doing that just once a week out of those 4 days? You're doing it 4 days a week?
4 days a week.
And are you doing anything else on top of that? Are you doing strength work?
No.
Are you doing...
I did the odd CrossFit session.
So you're literally just rowing?
Rowing, mate. Because you have to remember, it was also COVID.
Yeah.
So nothing is open.
Yeah, and everyone, you had
I
a
would
row,
have loved
you had
to
a row
have come
at
down
home.
to Coastal in Hong Kong and done a workout, but nothing's open.
Yeah.
So all you've got is literally going out for a run or actually just rowing. And I think that was basically all we did. And we had 4 rows a week, maybe sometimes 5 if we were going to do a strength session. So you'd put the rower up to max 10, and then you'd do some really strong rows. But that was building engine. And then the second part was actually how long could you stick on a rower. So our rows would then go to 2 hours. Then we'd do rowing a marathon, and then you'd do a 24-hour row. And that was really tough.
At what point in the 1 year run up did you do the 24-hour row?
Near the end. So you're kind of and that was
and you can't get off. You're just on it for 24 hours.
No. So you do, when I say a 24-hour row, it's 2 hours on, 2 hours off, 2 hours.
Right. Okay. So you were training that on the erg as well.
On the erg.
Yeah.
And that was tough because actually brutal. it was brutal. Rowing on an erg is actually a lot harder than rowing an ocean boat.
Yeah.
I mean, you're sat at. I took my Garmin with me, and I was like, I'd love to see some of these stats, like when I'm out on the ocean. And you're sitting at maybe 110, max 120.
So like zone 1.
Zone 1, right? If you're out there. And that's how you row an ocean. But on the erg, it's hard work.
Yeah.
And that 24-hour row, that was tough. We did that for charity. We thought we'll try and raise some money. We'll do our first 24-hour row. We'll get people to join us for 2 hours of exercise. But yeah, it was brutal. That training was brutal, but I was so fit. I think it was the fittest I've ever been. You push your body to some really dark places. The 2K row, the nervousness
Horrible
of trying to
test.
beat your 2K and knowing if I didn't beat it, why have I gone backwards? But I'd always beat it. But God, you'd have to really hype yourself up for a 2K row.
How did your body hold up in that prep? Just thinking about, repetitive straining the same movement over and over again. I'm guessing there's going to be like, probably at the start, there's going to be this uncomfortable period where your body's like, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
And then there's this adaptation period where you just fit into that position so easily.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like sitting on a row for an hour. You couldn't imagine it. I couldn't imagine doing it now.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine doing it.
But you actually went, 2 months in, 3 months in, you're like, this is a piece of cake. I know it like the back of my hand. I know the stroke rate. I know how I should be feeling. I know exactly this. You sit on that erg, and the first thing that goes is your ass.
Yeah. And
it just hurts so much. It's it's that hamstring, etc. And you're just putting all that pressure on it. And then that goes away. I was really lucky. During that training process, I didn't have too many issues. I had bad back problems for a while. And my biggest concern was, what if I get out on the ocean?
Yeah, your back goes.
And my back goes. And I'd let everyone down. But thank God, touch wood, nothing happened. But yeah, your body does acclimatizes.
Yeah.
And Duncan would go, okay, this week I want to row a marathon on Monday, row a marathon on Wednesday. So you're sat on that rower for 2 hours and 50 minutes. I think that's the fastest marathon I can do. And I'd go, yeah, piece of cake. Not piece of cake, but I'd be like, oh God, that's going to be a slog, but great, I can do it. If someone told me to do that now, I'd be in serious trouble.
I think like putting this back into perspective though, right? Okay, I hear a 24-hour row of 2 hours on, 2 hours off, and I'm like, that's nuts. But putting that into the context of what you're about to do, that's 142.
Yeah.
That's just one day. You've got to do 42 days of that.
But remember, like I say, you're kind of, it's almost like you're walking up the way Duncan probably explained it is, it's like you're walking up a hill, just a slight incline.
A slight gradual.
And you're just out there, you're rowing, you're with your mates, weather's nice little stroke rate, trying not to bash the oars on your mate's thing. That's, and then, it's not as bad as you think it is.
Yeah.
It's the admin and it's the relentlessness of it. It's I've got to get up for my 4 o'clock shift. I've got to get up for my 2 o'clock shift. It's freezing out there. I don't want to do this. I just want to stay in this nice, cool cabin.
Yeah.
That's the hardest bit about it. But you're right. But the 24-hour row on the erg is insanely tough because you're having to maintain a much higher work wattage, I guess.
Yeah.
Whereas your wattage on the boat is actually not as high.
So when did you actually get your on the water training? So if you're doing all this work on the erg, because you had you done any actual rowboat on the water experience?
So the mandate that Talisker gave us was, you need to spend, I think it was 120 hours on the boat.
Cumulatively in the lead.
Cumulatively on this boat. And you need to do it 120 hours before we let you race. And so what we went down to Portsmouth. I think it was Portsmouth. And we went down there, and it was such a pain in the ass to get there because everyone's flying in during COVID.
Yeah.
So how the hell are we getting, this is like June, July. I was already living in the UK at that point. I'd left Shanghai. So it was easy for me. But James, who lived in Indonesia, it's like, God, what a nightmare for him. But you're supposed to spend 120 hours on a boat and before they let you race. And I think 90 hours of that, or at least, 72 hours of that has to be in continuous. So you can't leave the boat for 72 hours. So you've got to be on that thing for at least 2.5 days, 3 days.
And what, are you just going up and down Portsmouth? What?
Yeah, you're just pretty much going. You're in the south of England, and you're going from port to port to port. Then you're coming back, and then you're coming back.
Surely quite cool
Yeah, it's
in
nice.
itself.
It was. You know what the weird thing is? All those huge. What are they called? Those big shipping containers.
Yeah.
There was loads of those, and then what's those big ferries, like those massive holiday ferries?
Yeah.
They're all parked up because
Right.
it's COVID. No one can travel on those.
Yeah.
So we'd have to go weave in and out of that. So yeah, there's 120 hours you've got to do mandatory on the boat, which is absolutely key. And you learn skills like letting off a power anchor, understanding that you've got to be clipped on all the time. So the big thing was the number one rule. Well, there's two rules. Hatch always stays closed.
Yeah.
Right. So if a hatch is open, there's two.
And there's two hatches at either ends of the boat.
The bow and the stern.
Yeah.
And if one of them's open or both of them open, and the boat capsizes,
Fills up.
that boat's just going to fill up with water, and you cannot flip that boat back over.
Yeah.
So as an absolute priority, hatches are always closed, always. And second is the second non-negotiable is that you are always constantly clipped on the boat when you're out there. So when you're coming on shift, you put your belt on and you're clipped onto the boat. And it's relatively safe. That's how, you go through really tough spots with that, and you just trust the process of having the hatches closed, clipped on. What's the worst that's going to happen? I'm just either going to get very wet when this boat capsizes, and we just get back on it.
And you're not scared about the potential of it capsizing because you probably practiced it.
That's it, right?
Yeah.
That's literally it. I mean, you go through all of that 120 hours. You have great coaching with Duncan, and you just know the rules, and you all have a set standard that you live by, and you don't fuck around with the standard, and you stay by that standard. And you know that if you do fuck around with that standard, you put everyone else in jeopardy.
Yeah.
You put the race in jeopardy. You don't want to be that guy. And I think that, to be honest, Ed, is probably the number one driver of getting from A to B across an ocean. Don't be that guy that lets everyone else down.
Yeah.
It was for me anyway. And you don't want to let anyone down. You don't want your back to go. You don't want to, not do the right admin. So you don't, when we go in after a row, we are making sure our admin is 100%.
So you keep on saying admin.
So admin is like,
I'm thinking like you're checking your emails or
no.
you're doing
So
your bank
admin
accounts
is
at home.
making sure you're dry.
Yeah.
Right. Getting food in you.
Yeah.
So you're ready. And we'll talk about nutrition in a bit. And also just making sure you're wiped down and there's no salt water on you.
You're not showering for 40. Is there a shower?
There's no shower. We had a little kind of shower with our little, we got the containers, but that's like halfway through.
Yeah.
But you don't shower at all, right?
Yeah.
You're putting on fresh clothes. You keep, but the admin is you make sure that you wipe your, I know this sounds ass, you wipe your ass and the butt, the where your butt hits the seat.
Yeah.
Because what happens is if you get seawater on there, those salt crystals, they dry up. And when they dry up and they push, and you're doing a consistent movement for 2 hours, and that stuff starts to irritate
And
the
you're not
skin.
healing in 2 hours.
No.
Yeah.
You have Sudocrem on the boat.
Yeah.
And that is the best thing you can do. You can just maintain. Sometimes Keith had it. Keith had salt sores on his ass. And so we had to put Sudocrem on him. And sometimes for Rich as well. But me and James, we were pretty unscathed in that. We did not because they didn't do their admin, not at all, just unlucky.
Yeah.
I just think really unlucky. So admin's really key because you don't want to let anyone down. And then the nutrition part of it is really, really key as well. Just making sure you're fed for the day.
So you've got 42 days worth of food on the boat. And what are you eating?
Okay, so it's split into two. You got your 3 main meals, right?
Yeah.
And that is dry freeze food, which is quite light. So it's like, camping food.
Yeah. Is this stuff where you like add some hot water to it?
That's it. So you had a boiler.
It turns into like a chili con carne or something.
Yeah. Exactly.
I follow some guys who basically like trek through Antarctica and stuff, and I love just watching them build igloos and sit there with their freeze dried stuff.
Exactly. So that's what it was. And it's that's high calorie dense stuff.
Yeah.
The shits were not great.
Yeah. Where are you shitting?
Oh, you're shitting in front of everyone.
Yeah.
And we'll get to
in a
that.
bucket, like over the edge, or what are you doing?
Yeah, in a bucket.
Yeah.
But I guess back to the food, you've got 3 main meals, and usually that's dry freeze food. Or if you want to go for the comfortable bit, you take some wet food. So that's like a nice chili con carne. or like meatballs, or all sorts of stuff.
So this is just pre-made stuff, though, right? So you
Pre-made
just
stuff in a packet.
yeah.
And
You're
those are your main
42.
meals.
Surely that's a shitload of like 4 lads.
Yeah,
And
a
you're
big
three
boat.
3,000
big boat.
calories.
It's a big boat, and you've got these kind of gunnels, and you just reach into the gunnel, get your food pack, and then you'd have what we call the snack pack. The snack pack. I mean,
You're getting excited about a snap pack.
Yeah,
I
oh
can see
mate,
it.
unbelievable. I mean, unbelievable. You're talking 3 Cadbury bars. You're talking chocolate pretzels. Love those. Gummy bears. All of it, mate. Because you had to get the calories in.
Carbs and calories. Yeah.
Carbs and calories. Didn't care what you were eating. I mean, it was insane. I think if we were to do it again, we thought like high protein this, high protein that. That stuff goes out the window. We took MCT oil. That didn't get used. We were just like, give us the sweets, give us the boiled pasta, and we'll just fucking make a day of it.
Yeah.
And it was fun. We were, do you want my chocolate pretzels? I'll swap you for a Galaxy bar.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was good fun. The food was outrageous, but I was the biggest loser. I lost 20 kilos in 42 days. I'd love to do it again. I need to do it again.
Are you seeing the weight drop off you? Are you looking down every day being like, I think I'm...
Yeah, dude. I'm looking down and I'm going, this looks different.
Yeah.
This feels... Getting up and like seeing a flat stomach and going, wow, I can see some noticeable difference here.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
It's really, really weird, like losing that much weight in a fast amount of time.
Okay, I want to talk about like the aftermath of this whole thing, but I want to get onto the journey now. We're starting to touch on like the nutrition and like, okay, you're shitting in buckets, the food situation. What was it like disembarking, like, getting on that boat for the first time, leaving Africa and like...
La Gomera.
Okay.
So the Canary Islands.
Got it.
Do you know what? That was really scary. Just like... Oh shit! Here we go. Like the day of the race, what they do is they let everyone go one by one.
Okay, so actually, something I want to clear up on this. Sorry to interrupt you. You keep saying it's a race, so there's all these boats are setting off at the same time. How many are we talking?
Probably 17, 18 boats.
17, 18 boats. Okay, a mix of the 1 man, 2 man, 3 man, or women as well. Okay, got it. Yeah. Right. So you're all setting off one at a time.
And it came to our thing. We really cocked up our start of the race, banging oars. It didn't look great.
Is there a big crowd there? Like,
yeah, there is. People fly in to say goodbye to their loved ones. My mum didn't. It's fine. But yeah, they, everyone comes and says goodbye to their loved ones, and it's tough. We cocked up our start, and I think the most difficult part of the race for me was actually the beginning.
Yeah,
because we had such a slow start, and I'm doing the maths. I know the maths. How far did we go today? Oh, 50k. 50k out of 4,000. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
70k out of 4,000. The enormity of this challenge hits you in the first 7 days.
Yeah.
So that really is the make or break, kind of. And you see why people after 5 days
like, fuck it,
fuck this, I'm going home.
But why weren't you covering as much as you thought you would?
We just had, I think, bad tides, and I think we just hit shitty weather. And to be honest, that year was the flattest weather. What you need to have a really
swells that are working for you, I'm guessing. Yeah.
The reason it happens in December is because the trade winds are pushing you that way.
Yeah.
And so if we go into the kind of dynamics of the race, you've got the trade winds pushing you, and it was a really flat year.
Right.
Like, it was one of the flattest years they've had. And it was just fucking awful. Like, sat there, no wind,
And I'm guessing because you didn't look like you're going anywhere, because there's no vantage point that you're moving closer towards, I guess, a lot of the time, right?
So you're just really,
miserable.
Miserable at the beginning. And then, we get on with it. And then we're almost, halfway through is amazing. Getting your halfway point is unbelievable. What was I going to say? Yeah, we had a really flat race. And we started really slowly.
But these other boats, right? So I'm picturing, you just said that you don't see another boat. So there's 10 kilometers either way. There's nothing.
Yeah.
But when you're starting, like you said, everyone sets off individually. Like, how far are you setting off from each other?
Oh, not that far. I mean, look.
So it just disperses.
Trust me, in a day, you start putting some distance on people.
Yeah.
It's, where's, where's the four oarsmen, or where's,
Yeah.
this lot. And you always, because you've got a weather navigator on call, so you every morning he tells you, pick up the phone on your sat nav, or sat phone, sorry, and you call your weather guy, and he gives you the stats. You are 70 miles you're 70 kilometers away from this. You're closing on these guys. You're putting some distance on these guys. It's an actual race, and it gets
Cool.
quite competitive.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's the really fun bit.
Yeah.
And we kind of really came up against it with these Dutch girls. And they had obviously rowed previously, and they were closing in on us. And we're looking around going, why are we so slow?
Yeah.
Halfway through the
When you're
race.
saying closing in, I'm guessing like they're a speck, and then the speck's just getting a tiny bit bigger than a
You
tiny
can't
bit
even
bigger.
see it. When we say closing in, they're 70 kilometers away.
Right.
And that's close in terms of...
But the guy's telling you they're 65 now.
Yeah,
They're
they're
60.
They're closing in, and actually you're losing here. I remember we had one of those situations, and we're looking around going, why is this boat... Why we're really like trying our best here to really put down some serious power. And then we knew what it was. We hadn't gone down under the boat and done... You get barnacles on the boat and it creates drag.
Oh, wow.
And so we had to go under the boat, and we just realized half our boat, or most of the boat, was covered in barnacles. And we're like, shit.
And that's forming while you're moving.
Yeah. So we got the scraper, we got them off, and then we started flying.
Wow.
Yeah, unbelievable. So I guess going back to the race, I mean, what is there to say? I mean, we started really, really slowly. First 7 days, awful.
Did you have any like fleeting thoughts of let's sack this off, or were you like
No,
we're all done?
no. I'm not that. I was in a bit of despair. I was never like... I mean, the reason I was in despair is because I'm going to have to see this thing through, right? Yeah. Quitting is not an option. Yeah. And none of the guys would have thought the same way. But when you're looking at it like, oh my God, we're going to be on this thing for quite some time, and the enormity hits you, that's the most difficult part. And you don't feel bad because you want to quit. You feel bad because you've got to see this through, and you understand what you're staring at now. So I think it was quite painful to the first 7 days. We weren't really expecting too much, but then that first 7 days was pretty tough for all of us.
What about nature? Like, you're in the middle of the Atlantic. Atlantic's like a pretty wild ocean. Like, Atlantic animals are like just a little bit crazy than Pacific animals.
So there's a great story, and I'll talk about our experience, but in the race that we had, there was a great story as well, and I'll come on to the swordfish. But you had all sorts of wildlife. So when we're rowing, you get these minke whales, these lovely whales that just breach right next to the boat. Unbelievable. And then you see, I remember once seeing tuna just jump out the sea, and they're just massive. Yeah. This tuna's chasing a fish to eat it, and it's just insane. So cool. You get flying fish. The flying fish, they're like fish, and they've got fucking wings.
Yeah, and they're literally going.
And they fly. And they hit you. They hit, like, the worst thing is and they're everywhere. Flying fish are everywhere.
Non-stop the whole time.
Non-stop, mate. Like, at least in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
And you're just rowing at night, and it's pitch dark, and suddenly you get hit in the face with this fucking flying fish. Really wakes you up.
Yeah.
So you've got those. I mean, just nature in general, staring up at the sky and having the best show. The moon. I mean, when the moon is just fucking huge.
There's no light pollution or anything.
There's no light pollution. The stars are amazing. And then I remember, like the back of my hand, I'm rowing out there probably like 2:00 with Keith, and this meteor or asteroid, I guess you call it a meteor, just comes out. It's like a flare. Yeah. It's like it just lights up the whole sky. It was the most incredible thing I'd ever seen. Like, one of the most incredible things. I'll never forget that. Yeah. And it's just the nature side of things. Waking up, doing my favorite shift was a 4 till 6 and watching the sun come up. That was unreal, dude. Surreal moments like middle of the Atlantic, and it's just calm. It's just, there's no waves. It's just flat. It's almost like you've died and you're rowing in limbo. Like, I can't explain it. It's almost like I think about it now, and it's like there's a heavy fog and you're just literally rowing, and it is flat as a pancake. It's quiet. That was surreal. just all of that stuff. Unbelievable moments I'll never ever forget.
The ocean's just such a massive, wild, like
Oh.
unexplored. I'm like so fascinated with the ocean.
Yeah.
Just of also just how little we've explored of it.
It scares me.
It scares me as well.
Yeah, it scares. Try jumping off a boat in the middle of the
Yeah.
Atlantic.
I'm thinking about you
knowing
guys
that-
scrubbing the barnacles off. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Nah.
Oh, I didn't like that too much.
yeah,
And you get your goggles on, and you stare down, and you know
there's some
that
shit
it's
down there.
It's like 2 kilometers down, mate.
Yeah.
Right, and that's unreal.
You said something about sailfish.
Sailfish.
Did you say swordfish? Sailfish? Did you say something?
Yeah, I've almost forgot that story. So the swordfish. So this happened in our race. There's obviously something really weird going off in nature at the moment because it was COVID or something. But we had twice in that race, and I think it happened again since. But swordfish were attacking the boats, right? And these boats were just plodding along, and then they'd get attacked by this swordfish. Anyway, one of the guys in another boat ends up going in for a shift, doing his admin, putting his head down, and he's lying down in the stern cabin. And next thing you know, he hears this big bang. He looks in between his legs, and there's a swordfish fin right in between his legs. I mean, if it could have cut an artery,
the bill's, he's just basically gone straight through.
It's gone straight through, and it's right next to his leg, right in between. Wow. I mean, can you imagine the?
They obviously had to patch up the boat, and
yeah, unbelievable. So those were like the top moments of rowing an ocean. Pooing in a bucket, probably the most difficult thing.
Surely the first shit's hard, but the next one's get a bit easier.
The first one's really
How's
tough.
your squat like? Are you shitting standing? I think I'd have to shit standing.
I'll tell you the procedure. You get a bucket. You've got your bucket.
Yeah.
You've got your toilet brush, which you always clean. You don't let there be a dirty bucket. So you fill the bucket full of water. You go to the front of the boat. They're rowing and they're facing you, and you're facing them, and you're taking a shit.
Why not go? Why not go to the back of the boat? Why are you going to the front, not the back?
It's too difficult.
Is it?
Because that's where, not the back of the boat. I'm rowing into the back of the stern.
Yeah, right.
But there's a little bit of space between. Sorry, the stern is the front. No. Yeah, you're doing it at the back.
But they're all facing you.
Yes. Yeah. So you're shitting in a bucket.
Yeah.
You're staring at everyone. It's not great, but you get over it.
Sure, there'd be some good bands after a while.
Oh, there's some really good bands.
Yeah,
we were really, in terms of our attitude to each other, we really made sure that we were kind to each other. I had one falling out with James over a chocolate wrapper. Keep the cabin clean, mate. Keep the cabin clean.
Yeah,
and it was just a little thing, and it was close to the end of the row. We were just frustrated, and we had a little blowout over a chocolate wrapper, something menial.
Yeah.
But the other guys, we all got on really well. If we had a problem, we had a code where we'd just beach it, right? Just put it to one side, get on with it. But yeah, I mean, there was some really interesting dynamics on the boat as well.
What about like sleep deprivation, like 2 hours on, 2 hours off? Obviously you did that 24-hour row in your training. Did you do any specific like sleep prep work?
No.
So it was like, pretty rude awakening.
I think you think there's like this whole, apart from the training.
I'm just thinking about how I might prepare you for this race.
No, it's just you get in there and you just get in
Figure
and
it
do it out. Yeah, dude. I mean, look, I wasn't working at the time, but you've got 3 other guys that are, so you try and do sleep prep for those guys. It's quite tough.
Yeah.
And James is now CEO of a very large business in the Middle East, and Richard was running a really successful gym operator, and Richard was running his own logistics company. If you tell those guys to do sleep prep, they'll probably tell you to piss off. But yeah.
How much sleep are you actually getting in that 2 hour?
Well, you're getting you're getting about an hour and a half.
So you're consistently getting an hour and a half, even from the start.
I mean, but you're so tired.
Yeah.
And you've trained so. I mean, there is a people do sleep 2 hours on, 2 hours off. I mean, there was Sam Bankman-Fried, that guy got caught for the BitMEX or Bitcoin thing. His thing is he used to work and he used to sleep 2 hours. He used to just sleep, in and out throughout the day. Yeah. I mean, there is a sleep pattern or a sleep schedule that you can...
I remember reading Tim Ferriss's 4 Hour Body.
Yeah.
And it was like, he was playing with all that stuff. And arguing how much sleep we really need. And I
Yeah.
remember those in the early days of my fitness career being like, oh, maybe there's a hack to this. Like, I don't
No.
need to sleep 9 hours.
For us, I mean, it's you could optimize. I bet you could go and look at that row and you could optimize certain
Yeah.
parts of the row and you'd be amazing at it. You don't have to optimize and you can just hit that thing, and you're probably going to have a really tough first 7 days, and that's probably what you expect.
Yeah.
If you run into that optimized and you're getting a sleep prep, then yeah, okay, you might just be off to a flying start, and you probably do it in 35 days.
And there's like a bed, like you've got a decent
Yeah.
bed in there.
Yeah, it's like a really nice cabin. I was really worried I wasn't going to fit in it.
Yeah.
But you do fit in that cabin. It's amazing. And then you do the row, and you pretty much come into Antigua, and
Nah, sorry, Josh, we're not there yet. I'm not ready for Antigua. We're still in the middle of the
I
Atlantic.
don't know how much more I've got.
Yeah, sorry. I want to know about mindset, like changing perspective, like on life. Like, I guess that much time alone. I'm guessing like there's like plenty of time where there's silence, like no one's chatting. I'm sure there's times where everyone's having a bit of a laugh. I'm sure you're going through periods of just like you're in your own thoughts.
Yeah, a lot
thinking
of
like, was there any like? I'm sure there was lots of reflection in the aftermath and looking back on all of it. But like when you're actually out there, like was there any massive like change in perspective about life, beliefs? Were you thinking about like you
100%.
before this? Like
100%. It was the most amazing experience. I remember coming off that row, and I was seeing Rachel at the time, who's my partner, and just being like, I was so uncommittal to stuff. My thing was just not being really, committed to stuff. And I just came off that being like, I really want to commit to this.
Yeah.
And I want to commit to this person. And a lot of that revolved around Rach and thinking about Rach and, the person I really wanted to spend the rest of my life with.
What was that? Was that gratitude or?
A lot of gratitude. A lot of gratitude. And I think, you do something amazing like that, it gives you a really good foundation to go and do other things. Unfortunately, I come to Hong Kong, and you after doing something amazing like that, and then you get wrapped up in working and you kind of lose it. And I think that's probably one thing I think, like I said to you before the podcast, I want to say yes to more stuff again. I think the last 4 years for me have been really trying to build my career back up here, and get into this new city and just understand it and new people. But I'm ready to do something again, because the feeling you get after doing something like that is unbelievable. And the mental, like I said, this was something I really needed in my life, and it doesn't fix you. Like rowing an ocean doesn't fix your problems at all. But it shows that if you put your mind to something, you can really achieve it, and you can go and do something. I know that sounds really blasé, and
No, it's true.
But it's
you build up the evidence to tell you that you can do hard stuff and you're going to be okay.
Exactly. But yeah, it's constant work, right? It's constant work in terms of yourself, and just reminding yourself, actually, you did something pretty amazing. And I think, if you want to go and do something else, like run Marathon des Sables, why not, mate? I think the most important thing is that you at least try, and you say yes to things. And I've stopped saying yes, and I want to start saying yes again. So in terms of mental fortitude and giving me a great new perspective on things, absolutely. And it really sorted me out. I was in such a funk.
Yeah.
I was coming into my 30s. And I just felt a bit like not a failure, but I felt like I wasn't going anywhere with my life. And
can I ask, Josh, like how did this row? Obviously, you said it changed your life because it suddenly gave you purpose. You're working towards this thing, this goal, and you do the thing. But like the aftermath of after finishing that row, like how did that change you feeling like worthless and a piece of shit, basically? How did that change? And what about the row change? Like it gave you this ability to come back to life and have this like spring in your step.
Yeah. What about the row? It's that achievement, I guess. Yeah. It's really hard to put your nail on it. Yeah, it's difficult. It's a great sense of achievement, mate. And it's like coming in to land and seeing your parents, seeing you know, my mum, my dad, seeing Rachel, and just having such gratitude
Yeah.
and such love for those individuals. I've always closed myself off, oh, Josh, he's off to China, closed himself off. He's not going to be close to his family. He's not really, he, keeps commitment by the door
Yeah.
and I just had this big realization that actually I love these people and I want to be with these people and they mean a hell of a lot. I mean, of course my mum means a hell of a lot to me, but you don't really understand how much you love people when I don't know, it was a really weird thing. You sit there with your thoughts, and you kind of process a lot of stuff. It's like therapy.
Yeah.
Um, and
Has that, sorry to interrupt, but the silence and like the being alone with your thoughts, is that something you try and incorporate into your life now?
it's really tough to do that in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Really is. My favorite things are maybe getting up on a Saturday morning early and doing Sunset Peak or something,
Yeah.
just alone. I love doing that stuff, and you just process stuff, and it's really hard for me. I'm one of those people who does really, really well by being alone, sitting there, processing what I've been through or processing my day and just kind of going through it. My mum's a therapist anyway, so we've always had those kind of conversations, and she always is great at fleshing things out. So I kind of do it naturally now. And so just being with your own thoughts is really, really important. And I think, on the boat, you're always with your own thoughts. I mean, we have conversations, right? With Keith, I'd have an hour with Keith, I'd have an hour with Richard, two completely different people. Richard was a guy who he'd never no he I mean he'd run a really successful logistics company, but he'd never been to like places like Asia, or he'd gone to America and Europe and that was it. But he was such a hard taskmaster, and there's a lot of good things I got out of the conversations with him and his perspective on things. And I think now he's really opened up, and I think post-Row he's kind of gone on and explored the world. He sold his business, bought two Ferrari. Him and his brother bought two Ferraris, and good for them.
Yeah.
And then you've got Keith, who was a great guy. Run a really successful business, Les Mills.
Yeah.
He was a global head of something for Les Mills. Sorry, Keith, I don't remember fully. But we'd have really introspective chats, and I was kind of going through this weird stage in my life where I'd left China, going into Hong Kong, and we'd talk about how that was going to go. And it's just nice. It's just nice to be there. I mean, put this in perspective, right? January the 6th, the insurrection, we had no idea any of that stuff. You're just so closed off.
Yeah.
There was so much stuff that happened when we were on the boat. Donald Trump loses the election. We knew that. But then, January the 6th happens and they storm the Capitol. We had no idea.
Yeah.
We were just in our own thoughts and audiobooks and music and chatting to each other. I mean, it was just unreal. So yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it was awesome. I can highly recommend it.
Yeah, I think the idea of, I guess the amount of conversations you must have had, and you got almost 3 guys older than you who've probably got a whole ton of life experience, and just being able to sit and chew the fat with those guys.
Yeah.
And, get loads of wisdom.
It was great. They were just older guys. They'd gone through the mill.
Yeah.
And they all had such different perspectives on things.
Yeah.
Like I say, Richard was a taskmaster. He was a no bullshit kind of guy. So was Keith, but in a different kind of way. And I kind of needed those conversations. I really needed that kind of companionship, that male mentorship.
Yeah.
Because, like I say, a lot of my friends were leaving. A lot of my mentors were leaving Shanghai. We talk about Neil. We talk about, my 2 bosses, Anthony and James. My friend Pete had moved, my best friend had moved to Singapore, and I was kind of stood there like, who have I got to talk to? Who can I offload on?
Yeah.
It was really weird, and so eventually I got on this boat with these 3 great guys who were all very different, and you just process stuff. It's really, really amazing. I can't say how grateful I was for it.
Love it. Right, you've said a few times this idea of like saying yes to more things.
Yeah.
What have you got lined up? What's next for Josh Stone?
That's a really good question. Do you know what? I've got this fantasy of doing the Marathon des Sables. but you know that
Which is what is that?
it's like six marathons in the desert, and Richard hasn't done it, but Keith and James have. So I'd like to give it a try.
This is solo though. You're not.
Yeah. I mean, this I would see is much more difficult as 42 days out in the ocean.
Yeah.
Because I'm 100, bleep this out, I'm 130 kilos, right? So you know, I'm not supposed to be running, right?
Yeah.
I'm not built for that, but I think it would be incredibly cool if I could do something like that. So I'd love to do an ultra marathon. But then, yeah, you get this monkey at the back of your mind going, maybe next year, maybe you've got this, you need to look after this. And I hate that. So I think
there's always something.
There's always something, always an excuse, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's now, let's get back into saying yes to stuff. Let's get a bit more open to new experiences, new sports. I think I've pretty much given up on, not given up, but given up's wrong. I'm ready to put rugby to pasture. I'm 37 years old.
How many years have you said that?
2 years now running, and John T keeps coming up to me, who is in the gym obviously here, and he keeps going, mate, one more year. And I'm just like, I'm 37 years old, mate.
To be fair, John T did that for quite a few years as well. So,
but he's like, how old's John T?
He's younger than us.
Yeah, exactly. And he's stopped.
Yeah.
So I just need to kind of hang up the boots and just say enough's enough. My problem is I don't want to let people down.
Yeah.
I hate letting people down. And if people are in a bind and they need a prop, I'll do it. I'll say yes. And that's where my mind now is. If I feel like I'm letting the boys down, it's an absolute no. I can't. If it's on my shoulders, like I can't let them down. Yeah. So that's where my head's at.
Is that something you're trying to change, or is that you accepting that that's a quality of yours that you'd like to keep?
That's a really good question. I don't think that's a bad quality.
I don't think it's bad quality.
I don't think it's bad quality. I like that about it. I think you just have to use that with a certain degree of sensibility.
Yeah.
You know, running out, you know, there's some amazing rugby players in Hong Kong playing first grade. First grade rugby is something different. Second grade rugby is still incredibly competitive. I just don't know if I've got the you know, the health and I can do that for much longer. It's insane because you're training with the first team. Yep. These guys are rock stars, you know? So yeah.
So this idea is just saying yes to more things. Surely there's like, you're running some form of risk assessment, or like not risk assessment, but it's a calculated decision. So how are you making this decision, right? So if we're thinking about these 6 marathons.
Do you know what? I didn't take a calculated risk on the row.
It just felt, it was a gut feeling. Just felt
like, it was a gut feeling. But you get through it, mate. Like, if you can row an ocean, you can run I need to run a marathon first. Fuck it. I'll sign up for a marathon first. I need to do that.
Yeah, good idea.
And then
didn't want to say anything, but I was like, Josh, there's a few little steps we can...
Maybe run a marathon first. But, you know, just say yes to stuff.
Yeah,
you'll do it. You will do it. If you really want it bad enough, you want it, you know, badly enough, you will go and do it.
And I think there's also something about, sometimes people don't know how badly they want it, but sometimes actually just signing up and like you've got that commitment, you've made that commitment, the deposit's gone down, the financial deposit, you've got the ticket.
I think there's something to be said, and this might be an excuse, there's something to be said about where your priorities lie, right?
For sure.
And my priority at that time when I signed up to the row, I didn't have a priority. I didn't know what my priorities were.
Yeah.
And that was now my priority.
Yeah.
Now I've got a clearer idea of what my priority is. I mean, you know, I've got an amazing partner in Rach who would, of course, encourage me to do all of this stuff.
Yeah.
She actually loves the idea of, if I were to sign up for a marathon, she'd absolutely love it.
Yeah.
But priorities on work, you know, work's got tougher for me. It's got harder. I'm a bit more senior in the business. There's more expectation on me, and life gets in the way. But it's not an excuse.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be an excuse. You should be able to do these things anyway. And to be honest, mate, you know, if James, who runs a really successful business, or did run a really successful business in Indonesia, if he can row an ocean, then why can't I do it?
Yeah.
And just be a strong member of a team, right? So I need to stop making excuses in that sense and just get off my ass and run 6 marathons in the desert.
I look forward to seeing the day. Josh, we have a we have a closing tradition on this podcast,
Yeah.
which we ask our guest to take us through what you would do on your perfect day.
Oh, that's good. Can it be anywhere?
Anywhere. You can choose anywhere. You can be working, you can not be working. You can construct the perfect day for Josh Stone.
Do you know what? This is my perfect day. And I live it most days, which I'm really quite happy. Well, not most days, but most weekends I get to live it. My perfect day is waking up with Rach and my dog Groot, going for a nice coffee, talking about the week that we've just had, the workload that we've just kind of got ourselves into, offloading on each other, listening to each other. I'm feeling grateful for being with each other. Grateful for being with my beautiful dog Groot, which I love. Going for a good coffee, having a good workout in, like a really good workout is essential to a great day. Chilling, and then just food, like great food. I love food. Like you can see, I'm 130 kilos, dude. I love to cook. I love to eat. There's a reason I'm going to San Sebastian in a week's time. It's, most Michelin star restaurants in a small area of space. But you got to work out for the eating. So that's pretty much my perfect day. And
Nice.
I get to do that every weekend. I'm very grateful for doing that. And you know what? If I could probably add on to that, part of that day now is probably working towards a project or
Nice.
working to something meaningful, and just, doing something bigger than yourself. So if that is, running for charity, or if that is, helping out a local organization, I think slotting that into your day is really, really key. And I want to do that more. We've got, I've got a guy that I work with who runs Yama, which is, it's yoga, and, mental health for this, people who don't really get it, people who have disabilities and stuff. And I've gone to a couple of those events, and they are unbelievable what those guys give back. And I'd love to start to do that as well. So I think perfect day, be with the things and, the dogs and the girlfriends that you love, talk about your week, great food, give back, exercise. How's that?
Love it.
Yeah.
Very good. I resonate very deeply with the giving part.
Yeah.
It's something I think in my life I know I want to do more of.
Yeah.
And I definitely have a time horizon of there's milestones I want to achieve professionally before I get there. But for sure, I think about giving on a daily basis.
Yeah.
When I think back on my day, it was like, what did I give today?
Yeah.
What kind acts did I do? And then how can I do this on a greater scale?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I figured that out earlier, really tapping into that earlier. But I guess you don't really think of that in your early 20s and late middle 20s. But thinking, giving is just, it's the most amazing thing. And it just, you get so much out of it, dude.
Love it. Josh, well, I really knew I was going to love this episode. And thank you so much for sharing. I know it was a while ago, so you had to dig into the archives a little bit.
And
what an amazing story. And I just loved hearing it. And I can't wait to see what you do in your next chapter of life and whatever your next challenge is. Honestly, you've actually really inspired me with like just the extremity of just, I did a similar process recently where I'm like, I haven't worked towards anything in a while.
Yeah.
And I chose a high rocks race. And then I'm not downplaying a high rocks race, but it was the same act of like, I want something to have purpose towards, to work towards. And I've always thought about doing something crazy. Like I was telling you about paddleboarding around Lama or around Hong Kong Island, like this idea of something that's a little bit more uncomfortable. And I do love the idea of doing something like alone and solo and in nature. And I think, I think after this conversation, I'm really going to think about what that thing for me.
All you got to do is say yes, mate.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's harder than it sounds. I mean, look at me. I haven't said yes for a while to something amazing like that. But you just got to say yes to stuff and just get outside your comfort zone. That's the key. And the type of person you grow into when you live outside your comfort zone is that's the guy you want to be, right?
Yeah.
Or the person you want to be. It's definitely cool.
Love it. Josh, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Until next time, my friend.
Thank you, mate.
Before we say goodbye, here's one crazy statistic for you. Did you know that almost 40% of people who listen to the show don't actually subscribe to it? Now, I didn't think that was a big deal until I actually learned about the power of hitting subscribe. For you, the listener, you get to stay up to date when we drop episodes on a weekly basis. But for us as a podcast, it really helps our visibility and helps us attract great brands and great listeners to help grow this podcast. So if you enjoyed this episode or you're a big fan of the show, please do us a massive favor and hit subscribe. Thank you so much.